at the beginning of my pitch competitions, before I even say my name, I come out on stage and I find the judge and I would say, how much do you weigh? And I would hand the mic. Exactly. Because whether I was first pitching, last pitching, in the middle, it would gather your attention, right? I would capture your attention, whether you're the judge or the audience. And then I pull the mic back like, I'm just kidding. You don't have to, answer that. And then I would go into my pitch of like, that is just like gaining weight. And then I had your attention, right? But once you have their attention, you got to make sure that you have something worth listening to. So again, start with a bang, end with a bang, highlight all the good stuff in between. And follow the guidelines. Like, that sounds easy, but if they tell you you got a 3-minute pitch, figure out a way to fit it into 3 minutes.
We're back here in the Ion Studios here in Houston, Texas at the Ion Center. Custom Journeys coming at you. I'm Elisa Iglesias, co-host of the show, and I'm here with the host of the show, Andrew Baines, to my right here in close proximity. And we're very honored and very excited to have the following power couple guests, entrepreneurs, engineers. They are Kylie and Ty'Lisha Summers, and they're both engineers, electrical and chemical engineering, and they are also the co-founders of the financial tech application company called SpenDebt. And thank you guys for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Hi, Tylee.
What's up, Tylee?
I think in my head, I just combine your names together.
You know what?
You're not the first.
You're not the first one. So real quick, funny story. So we was at our baby shower for our eldest daughter, M, and they was asking, "What you gonna name your daughter? Well, we didn't know it was gonna be a girl, but it's like, what you gonna name? Y'all should name, if it's a girl, y'all should name her Kylisha."
Yeah. No offense to anyone named that.
Yeah. So anyway, you just took me back some years, man, to our first baby shower. But anyway, I digress. Thank you for having us. We happy to be on this sharing our story.
Awesome, yeah. Now we're excited. You guys are the first couple that we've had on here, and actually first time we're doing 2 guests at one time. Period. So this is a first for us as well. So we're excited to talk to you guys. We're going to talk about your journey through your career, your journey through entrepreneurship, and then maybe even if y'all let us, how much you're willing to share a little bit about your relationship and what it is like to work with your spouse as well. So we're really excited about talking to you guys, and let's get into it. So let's start with SpenDebt. So tell us a little bit about SpenDebt. We've done some research on you guys, and we're really excited to learn more about it. But why don't you guys tell us what SpenDebt is and how it works?
All right, cool. So SpenDebt is a financial technology company, and we are on a mission to help save 1 million people from financial fatalities every time they swipe their debit card or have a banking transaction. SpenDebt can be found on the URL at SpenDebt.com, or it can be found in the Google or iOS App Store. But it's really easy to sign up. It literally take less than 5 minutes. And so how it works is the user comes to the platform, they create a profile, they link the bank account they want to pay from, such as their Bank of America checkings account. Then they tell us the debt account they want to pay. We know people are trying to pay their credit card off, they're trying to pay their student loan, they're trying to pay whatever, right? So let's say they're trying to pay that Sallie Mae student loan off. And then after that, we ask them to define their micropayment. So this is what is going to be added to every transaction that they have. So let's call it $1 for today's example. And then that's it. Now you go to the Starbucks, you buy your favorite cup of coffee at $5, automatically $1 is added to that transaction. $5 will go to Starbucks, $1 will go towards that Sallie Mae student loan. So over the course of a month, we aggregate all those transactions and we send a one-time payment on your behalf. Right? We will help you define and make those consistent monthly payments. And that is the premise of SpenDebt, man. And we've been helping people take down a lot of different debts. And we're just excited about what's to come in the future. And so if you hear and listen out there, hey, go try it out for free for the first 30 days. If you don't like it, you can cancel at any time, no obligation. But if you like it, roll with us. We want to help you. We want to help participate in you become a financially healthy.
Gotcha. That's dope. Yeah. So it kind of reminds me of like the like some other competitor like companies have like the roundup method, right? Where like you use your loose chain, you round up to the nearest dollar and save that money. But I like the approach that you guys are taking in terms of like applying that towards your debt. Because I mean, a lot of us in our generation do have Sally Mae debt. Some of us are waiting on President Biden to hopefully bail some of us out with some loan forgiveness, but it's looking a little shaky right now. So I mean, I think this is a good idea that you guys got in terms of like helping people get out of debt. So I really like that. We were reading some of your profile and we heard or we read that you guys were actually in quite a bit of debt after you graduated from college and probably like furnishing a new home and stuff like that. So what was kind of like the motivation behind starting the app?
Absolutely. So yeah, it was, as you mentioned, from our own personal journey with debt. So as you mentioned, we're both engineers by degree. So when I graduated, I went to the Infinity dealership and I was like, hey, I want that car. And I literally drove it off the showroom floor.
Which one you get? Which one?
At the time, it was the EX35, brand spanking new. Okay. Brand. So I thought. Kylie he graduated a semester before me. He bought a new car.
It was a new used car for me. I wasn't going.
Yeah,
you went out the showroom floor, but it's all good.
But the point is that we got new cars. There was some student loan debt. We had credit cards, and after graduating, we found ourselves in over $140,000 worth of consumer debt.
Oh,
right?
Lord.
Right, like all them zeros, right? And so we were trying to save money, and at the same time, we were paying what we found out were just the minimum, right, on our credit card debt. And we were like, why do we still have all of this debt? Like, we're not making a dent, based on how much was going towards interest versus principal.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, we finally got all of our debts in order and came up with this plan to get out of debt. And it took us 7 years or a little over 7 years to get out of debt. And we became debt free. And when we started sharing our story with our close family and friends, we realized there were so many people caught in the same situation, right? And this, what I call the never ending debt spiral. And they didn't really have a plan on how to get out of debt. Some maybe didn't want to, some was waiting on Biden, or at the time Biden was there, but they was waiting on somebody, okay? But the point was they were still spending money though. And so Kylie, actually God gave Kylie the vision. And he came to me one day and he was like, what do you think about this idea? Like, people are still spending money and they have all of this debt. What if we help them by taking a little at a time out of their checking account as they spend money? And so it's such a small amount where the impact, right, isn't realized right there at that moment, but over the course of a month, a day, let alone a month, right? You'd be very surprised at how quickly you accumulate, all of those micropayments and how quickly they add up. And that's how SpenDebt came about. It was from our personal journey, sharing it with others, and then realized they were caught in the same situation as us, but they were still spending money. That was the one thing they had in common. And so it's how do you take advantage of that behavior of spending money and help themselves?
Yo, that's impressive. And I mean, it's much needed. So I'm glad you guys, number one, had the vision and then executing that vision. Because I remember personally speaking, like when we bought our first house, me and my wife, like it was exciting. But then it was like, yo, you got to furnish the house. And it's like you go from a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment to a 3-bedroom, 3-bath house. And it's like, what if you got guests over? And then we start having kids. And it's like, bruh, somebody need to take care of this credit card bill over here. Like, this thing getting out of control a little bit. So I think it's a good idea, because as you still living, you still got to pay bills. So I like the idea of rounding up and using or setting an amount to attack your bills. So I think that's good.
Yeah, and just
it's one thing you said in there, and like, I think about like athletes, or you think about entertainers. Like, we know they make a real bag, right? They make a lot of money. But even in their case, and even in our case, right, it's good to be the first, but it's expensive to be the first, right? Expensive in obviously the blood, sweat, and tears you put in. But it's expensive from a cost perspective, money. To your point, buying that first house, you got to furnish that thing. It costs you money to do that, right? we became engineers. We thought we had, we were living, and coming from humble beginnings, you want nice things. And we didn't really understand. Well, let me talk about me. I didn't really understand the value of $1 at the time. And so I went to go buy this nice vehicle. I was riding clean, but did I really need that, the 2005 Acura RL, you know what I mean? With all the bells and whistles? Probably not. But I like to say that it was the best, worst mistake that I made in my life, because it really taught me the value of $1 and really taught me to really evaluate kind of those large item or those large purchases.
I love the phrase financial fatality. I think it really emphasizes the seriousness that this issue can bring up, especially for young people coming out of college or trying to go to a technical school or a 2-year program. They don't realize that some of those loans that you take out do have a potential to derail any type of financial stability. So I love this.
Indeed. Thank you.
We're going to keep talking about SpenDebt later on, but first we want to kind of learn more about you two and your journeys through STEM. So usually we just have one guest on here, but we're glad to have both of you guys on here and kind of learn about your journeys to becoming engineers. So you guys both went to the University of Missouri, Rolla, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Kylie, I think you studied electrical, and then Ty'Lisha, chemical, right? Engineering? All right. What?
Kudos.
Yeah, nice. Give us the Cliff Notes version, since it's two of you guys, but I'll let you guys decide who goes first. But what made you guys even interested to major in engineering from the start?
So Cliff Notes version for me is that I actually wanted to be an architect. And going into my senior year, I realized I enjoyed drawing as a hobby, but didn't want to necessarily do that as a career and be forced to do that on a daily basis. So it was my sister who actually said, you love math, you love science, why don't you and you love puzzles. Why don't you do engineering? Since you love science, focus on chemical engineering. I said, yep, it sounds good to me. And that's how I picked my degree.
All right, nice. What about you, Mr. Kylie? What about you?
Mine's just a little different, Doc. It was just, I took these classes in high school. We was making and tinkering with different like little circuit boards and making different projects. And I took the first electronics course. I liked it. Then I took the second one, the advanced course. And I was like, you know what? I'm good in math, good in science. I might as well go ahead and, go to school to be an electrical engineer. And that's really how I became the electrical engineer.
Wow. Messing around with the breadboards and memorizing organic compounds. And yeah, that wasn't for me. That's why I stuck with the mechanical. So I'm in awe to everyone that goes through those tracks. It's amazing. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. So since you guys are now a married couple that's on this entrepreneurship journey together, and you guys attended the same university, obviously you guys met in college. Tell me a little bit about that. And I'm sure you guys, if y'all are like me and my wife, y'all might have slightly different versions of the story in terms of who tried to talk to who first or whatever the case may be. But how did you guys meet necessarily in college? And I'm assuming you guys were kind of study buddies, helping each other out through this whole engineering journey that can be a challenge. Is that the case?
That is the case. I like to say, looking at the support Black HBCUs, man, we both actually went to HBCUs before landing at the predominantly white institution in Raleigh. Shout out to Tennessee State University, the real TSU, where I attended for my freshman year. And Ty'Lisha went to Dillard University in New Orleans for her freshman year before we both ended in Raleigh. But man, I don't know. I think it was 2000. It had to be 2004. Yeah, that's when she came to school. I played football in college, and so we were there, obviously, for our training camp, and we was eating lunch right after practice, and so there was an influx of students coming in, and it wasn't that many Black people in Raleigh, right? Let me just set the record straight.
It don't sound like it,
no.
But it wasn't. It wasn't a lot of color. And I see this girl coming, she had a little micros and, a little ponytail, but I wasn't even on trying to holler. It wasn't even on there. It was just like, you see your brother or your sister, you go holler at them. You know what I'm saying? You see them. And so that's all it was. It was just, hey, I'm Kylie, good to see you, good to meet you. That was it. And that's really how we exchanged or had our first exchange. And then from there, I'm gonna let her tell the story because when I tell it, she's like, nah, it didn't quite happen like that. But really, it was just me extending, saying olive branch, just saying, what's up. And I guess we didn't see each other, after that for a while.
Mm-hmm. And then we became friends. We found each other again, ran into each other again, I should say, on campus. Yeah. And he put his number in my phone. Did you or did you not?
That's the truth. Right. That is the truth.
And the rest is history.
They say tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Right? See, he tell the whole truth. She told some, but anyway. But yeah, I did put my number in her phone. It was really more from like, hey, let's stay connected. I know you ain't got kinfolk, here. Like, I'm gonna look out for you. Sister, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, those were the words that he said.
And it was really a friendship, man, and it just really morphed. I think we started studying together, and just spending more time and just talking to one another. It would never see. It was a platonic relationship, for a long, long, long time.
All right,
that's wonderful. And this is probably before the time of the smartphone, where you need to learn Fortran or something to program these things.
Hey, it was. She had that. What was it? The Nextel, the chirp.
Oh, what?
There was no texting. None of that.
All right, now that's dope.
Wise people. Yeah. Not old, but wise.
I like that. I'm gonna use that one.
Yeah, you taking us back there with the Nextel chirp. I remember that, but I was like in middle school, bro. I wasn't in no college at that point, so y'all got a couple of years on us, but we ain't gonna get into that. But that's cool. But now I like to ask people that question when I can, especially couples when they're with each other, because you always get two slightly different versions of the story. I tend to favor the husbands, the men in the relationship believe that they're more likely to tell the truth, but that's just me. But I'm glad you guys.
It's okay. Mother's Day just passed, so we're all.
Yeah,
Mother's Day is coming up.
That's what we get. I'm glad you brought that up. That's what we're getting ready for, to celebrate the men and these relationships. But yeah, but I'm glad you guys had each other throughout the process to like lean on each other, support each other, motivate each other. And then obviously really excited that grew into something more, and you guys now have a lovely family together. Talk to us a little bit, like after you graduated college. We already kind of talked about, hey, y'all kind of maybe blew a bag here or there on a couple of nice cars and everything like that. But talk to me about like the career part of things. Like, what was it like working in the industry? How much of, and in particular, one question that we like to ask our guests is, how much of like the engineering knowledge that you learned in college did you actually apply on the day-to-day in industry?
Yeah, so when I graduated from college, I started working full-time for ExxonMobil in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I started as a process contact engineer. So pretty much I had oversight for a manufacturing plant. And so whether it was like monitoring temperatures, pressures, making sure the unit was stable, and then helping with troubleshooting when things went wrong. So from an application perspective, like the knowledge that I gained through college definitely helped me. Now, I did pull out certain books once or twice, but majority of them have collected dust since I graduated, right? But there were a couple equations a few times when I was trying to test some scenarios early on in my engineering days at ExxonMobil, where, I really leveraged everything from a textbook perspective out in the unit. But I don't know, percentage, 20%, 30% overall, I would say, of what I learned, then I used and was able to apply.
It's a very interesting question, and I'm just listening to her response. I got a degree in electrical engineering and went to go work for PepsiCo Frito-Lay in manufacturing. And so it wasn't a traditional electrical engineering setting. It was more or less understanding problems and trying to quickly come up with solutions, right, to keep efficiency up and downtown at a minimum. And so the transfer of knowledge or the application of knowledge from theory to practical, I think innately, like I was using those things and not even thinking about it, right? And so, when you think about equations, stuff like that, that's more intentional. That takes more time to go research, right? Like I didn't do a lot of that, but I did do a lot of processing and, mapping and it was real problem solving. And so it wasn't a traditional, like you see, like here's the equation and go solve for X or go solve for Y, but it was problem solving, and it was a lot of different variables. And the one variable is people, right? And this is the one thing that theory don't teach you. It don't teach you those variables on how people are going to react, because at the end of the day, it was about gaining results through the people. And so Ty'Lisha said about 20-30% of what she learned in school, she applied into the workforce. I would like to say it's probably a little bit upside down. And for me, it's like I probably use 80% of that, but not necessarily straight up and down, if that makes sense. Right? Because we would on OITs, you had to understand what a PID loop was. You had to understand what a pump, what a valve was, inputs, outputs. You know what I mean? Like all these things, these are equations that you're just watching on OIT screen. So
what's the OIT screen?
I don't even know what it stands for. What is that? I can't even think about it. On top of my head.
I'm like,
it's been so long. I'll find it and I'll tell the audience what the OIT is. But essentially, OIT is just a screen where you monitoring your performance in the manufacturing facility or any facility, right? It just gives you performance, gives you the kind of inputs, outputs, the temperature, the throughput of kind of flow, whether it's oil, some type of steam, or et cetera. And so, anyway, yeah, that's my viewpoint.
Yeah, college definitely teaches you how to learn and how to problem solve. That's the biggest thing that I took away. Of course, all the details specific to my degree, but problem solving for sure.
Yeah, so I'm glad that you guys both have like slightly different experiences there. Part of the motivation behind that question is that we do find that like a lot of times our guests don't typically like use F equals MA at the job or whatever like equations they're studying and spending all these hours learning in college, but it's more so just a mindset that they then get to apply to whatever they're doing. And Ty'Lisha, you specifically, I know you said you only use like 20%, so I understand exactly where you're coming from in that standpoint. So I when I encourage people to like pursue STEM, I just kind of encourage them to keep that in mind, that hey, don't feel like because you're struggling with this one course in college or whatever that means that this isn't for you. Because chances are you're probably not even going to be using that throughout your career, and chances are that your career is going to change, or you might become an entrepreneur at some point. So that was kind of the motivation behind that question.
Real quick, OIT is the operating interface terminal. I think that they may not even use that term anymore. They may use the HMI, which is the human machine interface. And so these are just some terminologies that we just frequently used in the manufacturing world.
And I would just say, the last thing I'll add is that depending on the path you take. So for me, I started as a contact engineer supporting a unit. Then I went over to technical sales and then into global supply chain. There are many people within the same company that have taken the technical route, and they very much so are flipping through books, doing equations. I have mechanical friends that are mechanical engineers, working turnarounds, running the calcs. So if depending on the route that you want to pursue, like specifically if you want like that technical route, then yeah, you may use 100% of what you've learned in college. So it just depends on the path you take.
And that's so true. I mean, even in my maintenance engineering roles, those became way more technical than just me working on the operation side of the house, right? So when we think about maintenance engineering, it was like if something breaks, you got to go find a part, and if it's a pump or if it's a motor, like you got to go find a 3-phase motor and be able to look at the size of the motor, right? It's so many different nuances that I remember in taking those theory, classes, right? Now it's like three-phase. Okay, how to connect the three-phase, right? And like all those things came into play. Again, you're gaining results through people. It wasn't me necessarily doing the hands-on work, but you have to go order the parts and you have to go understand, and then working through your team to make sure that you got the right materials. So it is so fascinating, and it's like a kid on Christmas, right? Because you got this knowledge. It's like, I ain't never use it, but here it is. It's crunch time though. Like you. Oh man, I got this motor. We got 3 motors on the shelf, but none of them fit the problem that's at hand. You know what I'm saying? So now you got to scramble to find you got to call a sister plant, or you got to go call the manufacturer. Man, thinking about it now, I can laugh. But when the line is down and you are the guy at the plant, they got to solve that problem. Your manufacturing manager is on you, your regional director, he's called, like it gets intense. It gets intense. And your wife like, hey, when you coming home? Like all that, it gets intense. So, but being an engineer, man, I think to the point is you're going to learn some things. You're going to know some stuff that you won't even think twice about recalling. It's just going to come out natural.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. No, that sounds good. So thanks for breaking us down and giving us your perspective and how things kind of played out in your careers. So we're going to move into the next segment, which is called Factor Cap. So this segment, Factor Cap, is literally just true or false, right? So if it's true, say fact. If it's false, say cap. I think we got like 4 questions for you. So it's just, first of all, let me explain. So answer each question, factor, cap, and then give a brief explanation for each one. But try to limit your explanation to like 60 seconds or less. All right.
Got it.
All right, cool. And so we'll kick it off. With, I got 3 for you, and then Eli got 1 for you. So we'll kick it off since we already kind of talked about relationships a little bit. Factor cap. It's a good idea to start a business with your spouse.
Fact being, I always thought of working with my spouse was a bad thing. But the beauty of it, after working in manufacturing, working as an engineer, I spent so much time away from home. And so to work in a startup or the startup business with my wife, I get to spend time with her. And so it's been nothing but a blessing, at least for us. That's our story, but it's been a blessing for us.
Okay, like it. Yeah. I want to ask that one for sure because I've heard different perspectives on it. Some people say, hey, don't do it. But Kylie, I'm definitely proud and happy for you that you answered the question correctly. I don't want you getting in trouble later on. So we'll move on to the next one. Factor cap. Engineers make great entrepreneurs.
Fact.
All right. A little thought there.
It's a little thought because it's the bookworms and then it's the people skill set, right? It's like you got to understand where you are and you have to go build teams around that, build your team around that.
That's right.
So I'm a visionary, big thinker, do the people stuff. She's more of a technical person, integrator. So our skill sets are opposite, and so we match. So fact.
Cool. All right. Next one. So this one, I have a inkling that y'all might be like Dave Ramsey descendants or like disciples. So this one, factor cap. You should pay off all your debt before you start investing.
Cap.
All right. Why do you say cap on that one? Or Kylie, you got something different to say? Kylie, don't do it, bro. Don't do it, bro.
I'm gonna say cap.
Don't do it, bro.
No, I'm gonna say cap because if that was true, I don't think I would have been able to start SpenDebt, right? I would have never invested into my 401k. Therefore, I would have never had the nest egg to take out my 401k to begin the company, right? So I think it could be either way, depending on what type of debt it is, kind of where you're in your life. Like that's a convoluted or a loaded question. But I'm gonna say cap. I'm gonna agree with my wife on this one.
And it depends on the individual too, right?
Yeah. And you might not even need money to start your business. So yeah, cap. Or to and so therefore you can pay off all your debt. If you look on, from a fact perspective, but it's a balance, because when you think, it's another thing you think about, like when you think about building your financial house. Yeah, you want to pay off debt. You know what I'm saying, you want to have that emergency fund. So from a saving perspective, right? That savings fund, emergency fund, that could be your investments, right? It may not be something that you need to go get right away. That could be accumulating over time and building. And if you need it, then you can go pull it. So it's really about the individual. So I'm gonna stick with Cat.
All right, cool. That works.
All right, another potentially hot topic question. We kind of talked about it already, but should college tuition be tuition free? Should college be tuition free?
Fact. True.
I say fact, but I think in this day and age, the traditional ways in which we went to college, they're changing. You can go get a 6-month or a 6-week certification and go start a career, right? And if you don't like that, you can switch it up and you can go start another career. So I can go do, hey, I'm going to be a developer, right? Do 6 weeks, I become a developer, and I begin working. I don't like that work. Now I want to go be a chef, and I'm going to go take me a 6-week certification and become a chef, right? I can switch careers in the course of 12 weeks, but it's going to cost me probably a little to nothing. Call it $500, right? If you did that in college, and it's going to cost you your arm, your leg, and maybe your heart. You know what I'm saying? So when we think about education or college being free, I think it's going to get there, just because it's outpacing salaries, and that's a whole nother sermon, a whole nother conversation. But that's just what I think.
So
Fact.
Cool. No, I those are really interesting answers, and I definitely agree with that. But the more people we've talked to, the more we find that we're being asked to curate our own education. And so tuition-free college is definitely part of that conversation, but not all of it, for sure. But moving on, we'd like to go into more of the professional development section of the show. And we'll start with another hot seat question related to salaries. And just to tell the young folks trying to get a degree or that 2-year certification or that coding boot camp, is it worth it? What was your salaries as chemical and electrical?
So my starting salary as a chemical engineer going into oil and gas was $85,000.
You been doing money, girl?
And at the time, this was in 2008. This was in 2008, and just compared to my circle of friends, most of them were like mid-50s.
She talking about me. She talking about me like, hey, you talking about me? Like,
oh man. Okay.
You see, that's how she was able to drive that car to showroom flow. Doc. I had to go get that new used.
Hey, she tried to save you, bro. You had to put yourself out there like that. She said her friends.
It's good. I know who she's talking to. Factor cap, baby. But that's why
she put it delicately.
On the cord. 58,000. I started out in 2008. I guess with PepsiCo Frito-Lay. That was my starting salary as an engineer. It was great money. I mean, yeah, it was great money.
That's good.
I'm telling you now, I know engineers starting oil and gas, easy 6 figures, just out of day one, coming in at $100,000+
Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool.
Is it worth it? In my opinion, absolutely. But I mean, it's individual preference, right? It's a trade-off. There's time. It's trade-off.
Awesome. So, as you guys have been on your journey, y'all have kind of transitioned from being traditional employees for Fortune 500 companies, now working your way into entrepreneurship. Along the way, Kylie, you're doing this now full time, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so along the way, obviously, Kylie, you had to make the decision to quit your full-time job to then pursue this entrepreneurial journey that you're on. When do you guys, for people that are like trying to make that decision in terms of when do I quit my job and do this thing full-time, like what are some things that people should keep in mind, and what's kind of helped you make that decision?
I think it's an individual decision, but it's an impact to everything and everybody around you. Right. And so I lost my dad to a master stroke in 2014. And I was grinding at work. Talking about 2015, I told my wife it's going to be the year of faith. Didn't really know what that meant. And she already kind of knew how I was feeling in the inside. And she had her own perspective of me, in my corporate career, how long that would last and how long that would be. So in March, we had just found out that she was pregnant. And then she said, and I told her, I was like, babe, I'm ready to go do something different. And so she told me just quit. Right. And it blew my mind too. And so it took me 2 months. It took me 2 months to gain enough confidence and to say, tell my boss I quit. But the point of me telling you that is I had buy-in from my wife, right? We didn't know that we was gonna go start SpenDebt. That wasn't even at the table or at the front of our minds. It was just I wanted to do something different. But the more important thing is my wife was so supportive and pushed me to do that. And so everybody may not have their spouse or somebody, that they can look to make that decision. Right. And so you got to think about, in this, what they call it, the great resignation era, but now it's the great regret era. And so like, you got to be thinking like, what are you going to do? Because if I didn't have my life partner and my wife, my decisions would have been different. And so becoming debt free really helped us make that decision. But I think you got to look at a lot of peripheral things before you make that decision. And finances is definitely at the core of that decision in terms of what's the runway? How long can you pay them bills? Is it 6 months? Is it 12 months? Right? Can you go move in with your friend? Can you go move in, back home with your mom? Like those are the sacrifices we think, I believe that you have to make if you're on a solo mission, if you don't have a life partner that can help stand you up and support you financially.
Yeah, that's big right there. So I'm glad that y'all like a marriage should be a unit. It should be one, right? It's two become one. And I ain't gonna go too deep, but I always gotta give my wife a shout out when I can. So I kind of took a similar journey leaving corporate, and I didn't have anything else lined up at the time, and I was making 6 figures at the moment, was in Detroit, tired of living up there. So she said, hey, if you want to quit, just quit and we'll figure this thing out. And having that support is really beneficial. So, I mean, whether it's a wife, a parent, whatever, like you said, I think that's really, really important. So I'm glad that you guys had each other to support each other on this journey. And you mentioned that your wife got, Ty'Lisha, you got pregnant during this process, and now you guys have 2 kids. Being a parent is a whole nother like podcast episode in itself and all those challenges that come with it. But I am curious I meet a lot of entrepreneurs here in Houston, for people that a lot of them do have kids. So for people that are on that entrepreneurial journey and they have kids, what advice would you give that's kind of helped you in terms of managing both, being a parent and an entrepreneur? How have you kind of found your way through that journey?
Give yourself grace. Some days will be great. Some days won't, right? Some days you'll be completely committed and focused on the kids and whatever activities you're doing, and some days you won't. So first and foremost, I will say give yourself grace, but then you should be intentional about carving out time where it's just family time. And so because we are both working on the business, we can talk about it and get ideas 24/7. But at some point, you have to like put a pause on it, at least until we get through our family time. And then, we catch up on it after that. But even still, like we have family time, we need husband and wife time, so there's so many different buckets. So you need to prioritize them all. And again, some days you'll be really good, some days you won't. But I think as long as you're intentional about trying to make the effort and do it every single day, right? Every new day you get to start all over, you'll be good.
What she said. I have some thoughts, but I definitely agree, because I think that's what we try to do. The only thing I was going to say is the integration. Like very early on, I was a husband and a father and entrepreneur, right? So Elle went with me everywhere. She'd been to every bank and financial institution in the Galleria area, right? And she met all these executives that, I had the chance to sit down with. by integrating her within it, right, and almost giving everybody a role in it, it made it that much sweeter, that much better. When I took my first headshot, she got her first headshot. You know what I'm saying? And
full body shot.
And so these are priceless moments. You know what I'm saying? And it was good. It was really good. And I think we try to do that. And I think sometimes, my oldest daughter, she's 6 now. When I go to different meetings, she's like, "Daddy, can I come?" And so it's like sometimes like, no, you know what I mean? But it's like, how do you continue to nurture them? Because exposure expands expectations, and we want them to have and develop their own mindset around what is daddy, what is SpenDebt, what is mama and daddy doing, and be able to articulate that. And I think she knows if you ask her.
Our 6-year-old she can do the pitch.
She can do it. And so that's a beautiful thing, man. So finding ways to making sure that you do shut it off, to Ty'Lisha's point, but also finding ways to making sure that everybody feel like they have a part in it, right? She is definitely on our cap table. She has equity in the business, right? And so, it's important for her to have ownership and know that she has ownership.
That's dope. I like that. She better perfect those pitches, man, because her equity's on the line. So I like that.
That's right.
No, that's wonderful. It seems like y'all have a good synergy, and like your roles are perfect for each other and for the business. But speaking of the business, we like to go back to SpenDebt and learn a little bit more about that. And our first question regarding SpenDebt is, how did you bring up the funds? You mentioned taking out 401k, a little bit from your 401k to help start up SpenDebt. A quick factoid that we found in our research department here at Custom Journeys, and that is last year, 2% of venture capital money went to Black-owned businesses, which is a wild statistic. So in that context, how are y'all able to start?
Man, I want to expand on your research, man. I want to, in my research too, right? And I research
lived it.
Right. From February 2020 to February 2021, based on the Cape Port Capital report, there was 11,790 companies invested in. $288 billion were poured into these companies. Of that, an abysmal 222 companies were invested in that were Black, right? So if you do the math, that's 1.3%. So we're going to take your 2% and just really make it what it is.
1.3.
We rounded up.
We wrote less than 2%. He just forgot the less than part.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure we are clear. But no, this me. It's a serious thing. So when we think about capital, it's been a very kind of a sore spot. We obviously have skin in the game, right? I took the money as an engineer and as a seed capital to get us going. But our journey to initially raise capital in the beginning, from the friends and family round, kind of that early stage, it was no, go get these results and come back. Well, to get those results, I need money to go do that, right? And so the door just kept getting slammed. And it wasn't I wouldn't say it was a million times the door got slammed, but it was enough times like, man, I know that I can't keep beating this path. Got to do something different. Unfortunately, our idea was just good enough to make it into several pitch competitions and be accepted into different accelerators and be awarded different grants where we've been able to sustain at least the company to keep going, right? And we create enough runway to get enough to iterate, to make the changes we need from a technology standpoint or to do the marketing, right? It's been that, over the course of, since 2018 or so, we've accumulated $370,000. That's what we built SpenDebt on, right? Now, if you go talk to these, FinTechs that our name is in conversation with, that they've raised millions and millions of dollars.
Oh, right? We're not a part of the 1.3%.
We are.
We didn't get any VC.
No, we are part of that one. We did, right? So what he's saying, we're not part of that 1.3%. We're not part of the 1.3%. But I'm saying on the other side, people who have gotten that investment, right? They've been able to get to $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, whatever the number is, and they've been able to not worry about runway. Capital it's a hard thing. we've been very scrappy, very what we call capital efficient. And so to the question, to the point, Eli, that's how we've been able to sustain spending this through grants and through pitch competitions and through accelerators, right? It's not the best way to do it, but it's been our story, and we definitely are appreciative of what we've accomplished thus far. Now, if any investor is listening, we would love to take you and have a coffee date because we are raising capital at this point. So just throwing it out there.
A quick follow-up, Kylie. How were you made aware of these pitch competitions and resources for other young entrepreneurs that would like to start their own venture?
Google.
Google University.
Start with Google.
Yeah.
Once you get in there, I mean, there's so many resources. I know Kylie will tell you, like in Houston, right, you have the Urban League and they have the Small Business Development University. And so that provided a lot of resources. And it's like, once you put your email out there, once you apply for a few, like you're a part of this network. And so then the opportunities just start coming to you, and it's up to you to apply. And then just like us, I mean, we share, right? So through our network, we've gotten opportunities that way. They made introductions and vice versa.
A lot of research. I think early on, like Google. I used to burn the midnight oil, like the phone light in the middle of the night. I'm pitch competitions. I was everywhere, and people may look at our story and say, "Man, they win every pitch competition," but they don't see how many pitch competitions that we didn't win or that we didn't even get in. For the record, Ty'Lisha is, a hell of a pitcher, and I'm so glad that she's the co-founder of SpenDebt because she's gotten into rooms and competitions that I wouldn't afford to get into, and vice versa. But you got to put your name in the hat. You can't deny yourself. You got to let the institution deny you. So that would be some advice around pitch competition as well.
So yeah, you definitely got to shoot your shot. I mean, that's something that comes up all the time on here. A lot of times we specifically as minorities tend to disqualify ourselves for jobs just because, hey, we don't check every single box. Same thing, it sounds like with funding or with pitching. And I guess, Ty'Lisha, this is probably more so for you since you're the master pitcher for the pitch competitions. You guys, even though you're not part of that 1.3% of people that have secured funding, I guess there's good and bad. You guys have been able to hold on to more equity in the company. And you guys have still been a success in your own right. As Kylie, you mentioned the 300,000 plus that you guys have been able to secure through pitch competitions and grants and things like that. Also, the new MasterCard program that you guys have been accepted into. So give the entrepreneurs that are listening to this some advice in terms of what could they be doing that you guys have been able to find success in these pitch competitions and getting the grants and program funding.
Focus on the highlights. Focus on what you're good at. Don't focus on what's not working. Your pitch is not the time for them to know that you just lost your developer and, it's like a second from crashing. They don't need to know all that. Like, focus on the highlights. Start off with a bang and end with a bang. We were very fortunate at some point in time where we came across this idea of like comparing people getting into debt to gaining weight. And like, basically you don't pay attention to how much you weigh until you look up and realize you're 20 pounds overweight. And so I took that and I ran with it. And at the beginning of my pitch competitions, before I even say my name, I come out on stage and I find the judge and I would say, "How much do you weigh?" And I would hand the mic. Exactly. Because whether I was first pitching, last pitching, in the middle, it would gather your attention, right? I would capture your attention, whether you're the judge or the audience. And then I pull the mic back like, "I'm just kidding. You don't have to, answer that." And then I would go into my pitch of like, debt is just like gaining weight. And then I had your attention, right? But once you have their attention, you got to make sure that you have something worth listening to. So again, start with a bang, end with a bang, highlight all the good stuff in between. And follow the guidelines. Like, that sounds easy, but if they tell you got a 3-minute pitch, figure out a way to fit it into 3 minutes. Because I've seen a lot of people where they give a lot about their story, and then we have 3 minutes, and then the last 30 seconds, they're trying to talk about their business and trying to run through financials or whatever, and you run out of time. So follow the guidelines. If they give you 3 minutes, figure out how to section, break up your pitch. Highlighting the important stuff within that time frame and practice within that time frame.
Yeah, we got a pitch class. It's $9.97 for those that are seriously looking to pitch, right? Ty'Lisha's leading it. You can sign up whenever. No, I'm just kidding.
No, that's no joke. We should do it. That's no joke.
We get a lot of questions around pitching it, and it's a real thing. And so we appreciate you guys just giving us a shout out with our recent engagement with MasterCard. It's huge, and I tell you that started with a vision of me wanting to have MasterCard as a partner. In 2015, 2016, I did the cold call to MasterCard. Picking the phone, just called. We was nowhere near ready. It was just an idea at the time on a napkin. 4 years later, top of 2020, right before the pandemic hit, I got an invitation to go speak at the international headquarters in Purchase, New York. Right. And so that was dope. And then we got a chance to understand the program a little bit better and got a chance to meet the decision makers. Applied, didn't get in, but stay encouraged and stay positive, focus on the highlights, and just begin to continue to tell our story to MasterCard. And then some other things happened, and really God moved the mountain. That's if I can say it that way. God moved the mountain and made it way. And there was some people that spoke on our behalf. And we got in there. We became one of the first early FinTech companies to be a part of Start Path program. So it started with the vision too. Start with the vision.
So if I can summarize, have a vision, don't give up.
Definitely don't give up.
And just because you don't get accepted to a pitch competition or a program, this accelerator the first time, keep applying. Like grants, all of that, keep applying. Like, 'cause again, if you don't put your name in the hat, then you can't expect to get called.
Hey, what program or what software did you guys use to actually build your pitch deck as a quick follow-up?
Canva or PowerPoint.
Dang, okay. All right.
Very basic. Very basic.
Yeah.
Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It works.
Sheets. And that's where it's at.
All right, cool. Dope. So one more money question for you guys in terms of like funding for your entrepreneurial business and your efforts. I've seen like a lot of us watch Shark Tank and they get up there and they pitch and they're like, yo, I'm gonna give you 10% of my company for $1 million. And Mr. Wonderful is like, first of all, you're crazy. I'll give you $1 million, but I need like 50% of your company. Like, how do you guys determine like how much, when you're pitching, how do you determine how much equity to give away versus how much money you're asking for?
And if I had some of that $288 billion, I'd be able to answer that question. But I mean, for starters, there's something called a SAFE, and which is essentially like a convertible note. You can secure funding for future equity, or it's a convertible note. And this is basically saying these documents allow you to grant, receive capital or receive that investment without having to declare value of your business, right? And some people don't know the value of the business because it's so early on. You haven't got everything up and going. You have the revenue that you want, and right? And so, but you still need early cash. And so you can basically receive investment without having to declare value. Those are the type of tools that, I would definitely recommend in trying to answer that question. That's what we had to use early on with some of the accelerators, the convertible notes and the safes. So those are tools that help you. Now, as you get, you become very fluid and that revenue is pouring in, right? That's a different conversation, right? Because now you're saying, is it 10X my revenue or is it 5X? Is it, what is the market bearing? What is the market saying that our company is worth? And that's when you can, you bring in kind of outside consultants and people who can really just, really put a number, and then you can sell those securities to investors.
And then you need to figure out what's the total package, right? Yeah. That you're getting from an investor or an angel investor, accelerator, whatever. Like, the money is great, but what else comes with it, right? Are you looking for investors or need investors that are going to roll up their sleeves and, go in the trenches with you? It just depends on where you are in the stage of your business and what you really need to like kind of figure out what that value is and how you quantify that value.
There's a proverb. I don't know where it's found. Don't ask me where it's found, but they say all money ain't good money.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I heard my mama tell me that plenty of times, so I don't know where it come from, but hey, really, really. Hey, so real quick, I know we got a little bit of time before the baby start working up, so I want to ask you one more SpenDebt question, and then Eli has a big philosophical question he likes to ask everybody. So you guys have a technical background, engineers. You may or may not know how to code. We didn't really cover that, but for people that want to start, they have the idea. They need to build the minimum viable product so they can start showing, hey, this is the app that I want to create. And they need to start building a team to support them. How have you guys kind of managed that process of like, because you guys have an app, a FinTech company. How do you guys actually build the software and things like that? Do you outsource it overseas? Do you have a team here? How does that part work out?
Great question. So I would say start with the lean canvas. This is like by far my favorite exercise to do. And the lean canvas, why start there? Because it walks through every part of the business plan, from financial value proposition, problem solution statements, how you want to generate revenue, what's the business model, customer segment. It has all of these components. If you can fill this out, within let's call it 24-hour a day's period, based on the idea, you're ready to take that next step. Because the next step is going to require blood, sweat, and tears. It's going to require some more effort and potentially some capital. And so start there. The next step is being able to sell that value proposition that you built on your lean canvas. Right? You got to get buy-in. How you going to make money? Like people that you're going to recruit to help build, they need to understand and know these things. And so if you're the visionary of this particular company, this is what you have to. This is what you got to sell. And so you selling to recruit talent, but you also selling to investors to get capital. All these things work together. Our story, what we have been able to do is we've been able to have contract developers support us and throughout the process. But we knew very early on, I planned everything I'm telling you, like I planned it out. Ty'Lisha was definitely a very integral part of that plan. And so much so that she created the first simulator in Excel. We use Excel, the disposable tools that we had to build the first prototype or the model that we wanted to sell. And we've been able to use that to then obviously move to the next phase. I would tell you, when you think about developers, whether they're onshore or offshore, it doesn't matter. You have to communicate exactly what you want. Because if you say, hey, go build me a blue sky, they're going to go build you a blue sky. But you was thinking a blue sky with the clouds, with the moon and the sun and you were thinking the bells and the whistles, but you just told them to go build your blue sky. Developers, they're different. They think different. It's logic for them. And so, these are some of the hardships that we had to learn in the early phases on exactly being able to be descriptive. So it's not, everybody don't think like you because you were the visionary. So I'm talking to myself right now. You got to break that thing down. You got to be very specific on what you need, what you want, where you're going, and be able to then go recruit, those folks and people with capital, whatever it is, to go fulfill that need and gap.
I think that's so interesting. That ties really well with what you mentioned earlier about how your social acumen needs to be just as good as your technical acumen. I actually don't like the term soft skills because there's nothing soft about it. It's actually, so I'm really glad you pointed that out. Believe it or not, we've always been talking for an hour, and there are a lot of things that we brought up that we can talk about for hours. But to end the show, I always like to ask a big picture question, and it's my favorite part of the show. But I like to poke into the mentality and the philosophy of each of our guests. I think it's really important to show that to the audience. And so our big picture question for today for you two, in your experience now, you've been working in corporate, you're starting your own business. What can be done or what should be done to increase diversity in STEM at the corporate level?
She's in corporate. I'll let her answer first.
Go ahead. Like, if you already.
Yeah. So I think it's layers to this, right? It's all about it's called pipeline. I'm gonna say that's the word I'm gonna use to quantify what I'm saying, or to qualify what I'm saying. So pipeline. So the moment a kid get into kindergarten to the moment they graduate from high school, whether it's 13 years, right? 5 to call it 18, 13 years. Is that right? Is my math right? Yeah, 5 to 18. But anyway, so it's pipeline. So we how do you tie a kindergarten to become the engineer at ExxonMobil, right? Corporates need to bite size where the world is going and be able to build STEM, right? Or STEAM as a part of that journey. And as we know, the world is moving fast and how kids are getting exposed to it, whether that's via YouTube. Our daughter likes YouTube and you have a lot of social media is happening, right? So information is moving fast, but I think it's not hitting the schools or in a structured way. So I think it's about building that pipeline and then being able to show the impact that the kids can have even as kids. Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, and there may be a few others. They were called upon before they was even eligible to be in the workforce to go solve corporate problems. And these are documented. It's a document on, I think it's on Netflix called In the Mind of Bill Gates, where they called on him to go solve a corporate problem very early on. He was a whiz kid, right? Everybody's not there, but the whole point here is our kids are smarter than what we think and what we know. So how do we continue to teach them very early on and grow them over time and let them feed into becoming that engineer? And I think corporate dollars can help fund that and fund the school system to make these things available and make it equitable. It's not just about hitting those private schools or hitting the River Oaks of the world, be able to hit third ward, fifth ward, right? Because kids are born into circumstances that they can't change, but they still have the same sharp developing minds that we need to feed. And so, black and brown needs the same representation that the predominantly white needs, and it needs to be equitable. But the point here is to feed in early and build that pipeline. I think that's corporate responsibility. And I think some corporates are doing this. I'm not saying that none of them are not doing it, but that's how we get there.
That was good. Yeah. No, I can't. What you said was amazing. And I think to what we always say, exposure expands expectations, and oftentimes underrepresented communities miss out on opportunities and exposure early on, right? Because they don't have the funding, they don't have the resources. And therefore, when they're finding about engineering, it's in high school versus their counterparts who, been tinkering with circuit boards and stuff because their moms were the kids since they were 5 years old, right? So the gap there is substantial. But I think when you get into corporate, it's how are companies being intentional about creating pathways for diverse employees to get to those higher positions, right? Because corporate America, it's predominantly white, unless you can point to one industry where it's not. But corporate America is predominantly white and has been since the beginning of time. And so many companies have done a great job of figuring out how to create programs to elevate women, right? But now it's like, how do you take those same practices and processes and figure out how to duplicate it for diverse employees? Like, we talk a good game, but I feel like then nothing ever happens. And we make strides, and then it's like, well, you should be okay because we did something, right? We have one diverse employee in upper management or whatever.
The head of HR.
We filled the
or DEI.
DEI coordinator. Yep.
Right? Like, there has to be more done. Like, being more intentional, not just here's our DEI contact. There has to be more intentionality on the corporate side to create those pathways. And until you start forcing those discussions, it's not going to happen. They're going to continue to just do what they've done.
Gotcha. Yeah, we're on board with that. We believe that 100%. So, I mean, especially with George Floyd's passing or murder, a lot of companies are quick to put out statements so that they don't get canceled and stuff like that the next time somebody gets murdered. But yeah, how many people are actually making legit equitable changes to help Black and Latino people? So we can go on and on about that. We probably should move this question earlier in the podcast because, I mean, we really could talk for a minute about it. But I'll let Eli take us home.
No, thank you so much for giving us some insight for your philosophical, experiences in corporate. It's very valuable for us. We always learn so much every time we talk to folks like yourselves, and also for the audience. Hopefully, we got young people listening to this. But thank you for giving us your time, your expertise, and your experiences. We really appreciate it. And Kylie, Ty'Lisha, is there anything or anyone you want to shout out before we close the show?
Thanks for having us. Appreciate the time. We don't take these opportunities lightly, so definitely appreciate your time, giving us an opportunity on your platform to speak to your audience and to bring awareness to who we are and what we do. So thank you again.
No, this has been cool. It's been fun, man. Yeah, it's great to talk to like-minded individuals. And as regard to the audience, man, we would love to have you guys follow us, follow our journey. We can be found at SpenDebt.com, on social media, Facebook at SpenDebt, LinkedIn SpenDebt. If you find us on IG, it's ITS_SpenDebt. But we would love to just have you follow us. And again, if you someone out there trying to pay out their debt, you're trying to get ahead in life, or you're just trying to commit to paying the debt, you just can't get. We'll help you. Our platform will help you. You can start with 50 cents per transaction. It'll get you going before you know it, and you'll look up and you pay that thing off. Who won the race, the tortoise or the hare? It's about being consistent. And we want to help as many people as we can. So thank you again for allowing us to bless the podcast.
Yeah, no doubt. And we'll definitely check you guys out. I kind of ran up a bill on the Best Buy card, so I could definitely use the SpenDebt at this moment. My wife's been getting on me about that. But we really had a great time in interviewing you guys, talking with you. We'll be championing you guys' success, telling everybody we know about you as well. So we wish you nothing but the best. So thank you guys again for coming on and chatting with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, for Custom Journeys, I'm Elisa Iglesias. This is the host of the show.
I'm Andrew Baines.
And we're out of here.
Peace.